Creation. When I say this word to you, what comes to mind? You may be thinking of making things, something artistic, working with your hands, shaping an idea. Whatever it may be in your mind's eye, I doubt the first thing you envisioned was yourself. I'm an artist. I've been an artist my entire life, so creation is something I think about all the time. I believe creation is simply transformation, the process of taking existing ideas, materials, or energies and transforming them into something new and different. I believe the driving force for all artists is the desire to transform personal experiences and emotions into things that are beautiful, entertaining, or inspiring. To create is to take what's inside of us and turn it outwards, thus creating a space in which we can connect with others through recognition of shared experience. Now, I could stand here and talk lofty definitions of creativity and artistry all night, but I'll be real. I was raised in New England by two well-meaning massholes who, as soon as I hinted at wanting to become a musician, said, "Look, we want you to always follow your dreams, but you better make sure to follow them in a way that's going to pay your bills." It was made clear very early on that I had a job in life, and that was to go to school, get good grades, and work hard, so I could then be hired by a job that would pay me enough money to become financially independent. And somewhere in all of that, I also had to love what I was doing. I don't think I'm in any way alone in this experience. It's a fairly common expectation in American society. So I did what I was supposed to do. I excelled in primary and secondary school and went on to get 2 degrees in music, but not just performance, because too risky. I studied sound engineering and music education so as to equip myself with marketable skills. After graduate school, I worked directing programs for various schools and churches and was eventually hired to conduct a Grammy Award-winning children's choir. I identified so strongly as a musician for most of my young life, but I always had a variety of other hobbies. I loved to make things beautiful, and I particularly loved to bake and cook. But despite creating in the kitchen almost daily since the age of 4, despite its place in my life as a creative outlet, stress reducer, and means through which I've met countless friends, I never considered it more than a frivolous hobby. Then at the beginning of 2017, I found myself unemployed. I applied for jobs fervently, but weeks passed and months passed, and it ended up being a full year I was without a job. In this time, I not only grew panicked watching the number in my bank account plummet while living in San Francisco, but I also struggled deeply with feelings of purposelessness and lack of fulfillment. Being unemployed challenged my whole sense of identity, while forcing me to realize that my entire life I had synonymized self-worth with professional status and accomplishment. In this year, I started baking and cooking more than I ever had. I baked so much that I carried around a large woven basket filled with whatever I'd made that day, ready to give it off to whoever would take it. I made so many new connections and deepened my existing relationships simply by offering people food I'd created. I observed how their faces would light up when I pulled something from my basket saying, "I made you this." And I relished that. In this period of my life, when I was desperate for my days to feel productive and purposeful, it occurred to me that if my only accomplishment in a day was that I helped someone smile, I could rest assured that my day had been meaningful. 4 years later, I've come to believe that no matter how we are employed or unemployed, or where our passions lie, the majority of us are in pursuit of our life's work. We seek out the job or project or creation that's going to fulfill us, give our existence meaning, and most importantly, make a sizable impact on others. This is an innate human desire that transcends any particular field of interest or expertise. But how is it that we qualify meaning? The type of life's work I'm referring to is hardly monetary. Money can't buy feelings of fulfillment and purpose. Then what about our impact? Can we truly quantify that? In a society growing increasingly influenced by social networking, where we're pressured to reach large audiences and garner widespread acclaim, it becomes easy to forget that impact and influence are not always measurable by numbers, metrics, and awards. I've always loved to drive. I will always opt to get in my car and drive myself somewhere over any other mode of transportation. So when I think of the pursuit of one's life's work, I liken it to a road trip. And before I dive into this metaphor, please know I'm not about to be like, hey man, it's about the journey, not the destination. But when we head out on a road trip, we have a plan for where we want to end up, an idea of how we're going to get there, and the amount of time it's going to take. But how often does a road trip happen exactly as we've planned it? God willing, we get to our destination, but there's inevitably traffic, or construction detours, or an accident. The GPS reroutes us, or we get a flat tire. Or sometimes we choose to stray from the map and take the scenic route. We might even stop and explore a town we never knew existed. If we stray from the route, whether by circumstance or choice, if we get to where we're heading later or earlier than intended, or hell, if we never even arrive at the destination, do we then deem the trip meaningless? Do we assume it served no purpose? We all have an idea of where we want to go in life, who we want to be, what we want to do, and in most cases, how we plan to do it. But in the same way, road trips are rarely able to happen according to plan. Our lives hardly do either. We lose jobs. Relationships end. Accidents and emergencies happen. Or perhaps we have a change of heart. We no longer feel impassioned by the things we once did, or we start to feel detached from the people we once believed ourselves to be. So how do we continue to live purposefully and pursue our life's work when we can never be certain of life itself? This past year in particular, the majority of us had our concept of certainty starkly challenged, and we were forced to reevaluate. Whether life's circumstances necessitate it or personal desires incite it, we have the capacity and the right to transform, to continuously create and recreate ourselves. A common trait among all artists, regardless of discipline, is being observant. Us artistic types have a way of seeking out and gathering inspiration from our surroundings, constantly seeing and feeling the world around us. Life provides an abundance of inspiration, so long as we are readily seeking it. A big part of my career is styling for commercials and advertisements. I'll share what's a typical scenario that I experience. I'll get hired for a job, working with a team of art directors and photographers. Prior to the shoot, we'll meet with the client, who will send us a stack of reference shots, indicating how they'd like the photos to look. The day of the shoot, I show up with my suitcase of supplies, wearing my belt of tools, and I've gone to the grocery store to source all the ingredients needed to create these photos. Basically, I am armed and ready to be the Michelangelo of roasted chicken. The photographer and I get to work. Everything will be going well. We'll have gotten the photo to look exactly as we want it, so we send it off to the client for feedback. The client will then look at it and go, this is nice, but can we add peaches around the chicken? And I'll say, you have us in Chicago, and it's February. And they'll say, what's your point? So back to the grocery store I go, where I know I'm not going to find peaches. So what do? I get pears, and I get orange Kool-Aid. And I go back to the set, where I cut the pears just so, and I soak the slices in the Kool-Aid, then I pat them dry and take a Q-tip and rub the skins so they're fuzzy. And as far as the client knows, they've got peaches. We may not have control in life, but we always have a choice. We can choose to feel that things are happening to us. But once you adopt the creative mentality of an artist, things start to seem a lot less coincidental. With the slightest shift of awareness and intention, it becomes clear that things are not happening to us, but for us. Life provides the tools we need through opportunity or adversity, but it is up to us to be resourceful, to choose how we want to use these tools, to decide what kind of artists we want to be. Art is a very instinctual, intuitive thing, but nevertheless, all art forms have teachable techniques, time-proven standards of what characterizes well-made or performed work. For instance, in music, there's intonation, rhythmic accuracy, phrasing. And while all art is subjective and can't be fairly deemed good or bad, it's evident when an artist has become proficient at certain techniques. Similarly, there are traits that are collectively recognized as the ideals of human nature. We're all born with natural inclinations towards certain abilities and certain qualities, but we get to decide who we create ourselves to be. And in the same way, an artist has to routinely practice their skills in order to make great art. The way a musician has to run scales or a dancer has to hone their coordination. We have to intentionally practice the qualities we want to embody. The more we practice our unique personal artistry, the more attuned we become to who we are, the more fully we embody our purpose. We devote so much of our energy and time to the work we do outside ourselves, our jobs, relationships, activities. And although these things are incredibly important, perhaps we should let our work be a natural extension of the meaning and fulfillment we create within ourselves. Because even if we achieve perceived success through our outside work, are we to then build some kind of glass castle around it and trap ourselves inside to prevent it from shattering? We often hear it said, the only thing you have in life is yourself. Often these words get spoken cynically after a job is lost or a relationship ends, implying we can never rely on anything or anyone. But if you isolate this phrase from any subjective circumstance, can you hear the beauty in it? You always have yourself. So long as you are standing on this side of the dirt with air coming in and out of your lungs and a beating heart, you have you. So what work could possibly be more valuable than that which you create within yourself? When working as a stylist, it's my job to prepare and arrange the objects in a scene to look as beautiful as possible. While I do that, it's the photographer's job to work with the lighting, to adjust the exposure and balance the highlights and shadows to capture the scene in a certain complementary way. This takes far longer than you might imagine, no matter the photographer's level of expertise. Depending on what's being photographed, where we're shooting it, and countless other factors, we always have to make adjustments to get the lighting just right. But once it's right, and that first photo is taken, it's a bit magical. I never cease to be amazed by what skillfully cast lighting can do. Sure, I've worked hard to make the subject of the photo appear beautiful to a naked eye, but when I see it in the photograph, featured in just the right light, its beauty is greatly intensified. And if I'm lucky, some of the flaws even seem to disappear. We all have highlights and shadows within us, and I believe it is our responsibility as human beings to adjust and balance them in order to fully expose who we are. This light within us can't be contained. It wants to reflect outward. And when we purposefully work to balance our light, we start to illuminate the people and spaces around us. In the same way, the photographer has perfected the lighting on set to make whatever I styled appear more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. There are a lot of someones who need your very light in order to fully see their own beauty. To think, it's not unlike pulling a box of cookies from your basket saying, I made you this. These moments, they don't come with a standing ovation or a major headline or a spot on a bestsellers list, but what seems more meaningful? This is what I mean when I say impact is not always measurable by numbers and awards. Because when we use our light to illuminate the beauty in another, we may never know the ways in which they'll use that beauty, the art they'll create within themselves to share with another and then another. Like all art forms, the effects of self-artistry are intangible, but the impact is undeniable. If a photographer doesn't balance the exposure of a photo, the image is lost. If a florist doesn't water the flowers, they wilt. If a musician falls short of the notes, the melody disappears. So what happens if we ignore the artistry of our souls? Self-artistry takes practice. It takes a lifetime of practice, and the work can never be truly finished. But if each and every one of us chose to be gainfully self-employed as artists of our own being, if we made a daily commitment to practice creating ourselves, seeking out the beauty in our experiences and using it to craft who we are, if we worked to balance the light within us and shine it outward to illuminate the beauty in others, imagine how beautiful this world would be. So, the next time you hear the word creation, my hope is that in your mind's eye, you see yourself. To create our souls, this is our life's work.